Philip Hughes has been playing for the Adelaide Strikers in the domestic competition. 7 News reporter Mark Mooney is at the Adelaide Oval for us this afternoon. Mark, Philip was only there a fairly short time, but no doubt he made many friends and won many hearts.
That's right, Mark. He's certainly been remembered as a man, as a player who made such an incredible impact here in South Australia. Like you say, he's only been here for a couple of seasons, but certainly endeared himself to fans and teammates alike. We've already seen some pretty emotional scenes here this morning. There were staff members from the South Australian Cricket Association, as well as the South Australian Scorpions, the women's team here in South Australia. They came out onto the ground before the crowds had started arriving. They laid a wreath on the centre wicket, and then each of them laid an individual white rose on the centre wicket as well. Plenty of tears, plenty of hugs, certainly very emotional. But don't forget, he had a couple of seasons here, made an incredible double century here in front of a crowd against Western Australia last year. Many of the people here in the stands today would have been here that day. Tragically, they'll be watching his funeral service on the screens here at Adelaide Oval today, Mark.
Mark, fans there at the Adelaide Oval, it is a very special ground, but they'll be able to leave their own tributes after this service.
That's right, Mark. The South Australian Cricket Association's taken a pretty rare step to allow fans on the ground straight after the service. We've seen kids carrying cricket bats and hats and flowers and letters. They're going to be allowed on almost up to the centre wicket and allowed to leave their tribute there for Philip. Should be a lovely touch by Saka, and a really special moment for these kids who've idolised Philip since he came over to Adelaide. At about 4 o'clock this afternoon, those tributes are going to be moved out into the Southern Plaza outside the Adelaide Oval here, where a makeshift memorial's been growing since Philip's death last week. Those tributes will stay there until the end of the first test, which of course will be in Adelaide now, and that will be a special moment for Philip's family, his adopted home ground. Mark.
Mark Mooney at the Adelaide Oval, thank you so much.
For the past 3 seasons, Philip Hughes had been a key player for the Adelaide Strikers and the Redbacks. Today, thousands of fans rallied at Adelaide Oval to pay their respects. Mark Mooney is at the ground. Mark, Philip Hughes played there for a relatively short time, but obviously made a huge impact.
Yeah, that's right, Angie. Good afternoon to you. It's astonishing to think that Philip Hughes only moved here to South Australia in 2012 from New South Wales. He's played 3 seasons with the Strikers and the Redbacks, but made such an incredible impression since he started here. He's almost become a bit of a pin-up boy for the Strikers and the Redbacks. He's a good-looking guy. The way he went about it on the field and off the field. There's a portrait of him, of course, out in the Southern Plaza here at the Adelaide Oval, where a makeshift memorial has been set up. Probably the highlight of his career here in South Australia was a double century against WA last year at the Adelaide Oval. Many of the people that were here today to watch his funeral service would have been here on that day just to see the way he went about it. They were pretty upset here talking to us today. Let's have a listen to some of the fans as they arrived here.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable young talent, and it's so sad that he's gone.
Phil Hughes is obviously a great cricketer for Australia and South Australia, and just to show our respects.
It's been a fantastic career, and I think this is a wonderful tribute to him.
And Mark, floral tributes have been left on the field.
Yeah, that's right. Before the services have even started, Saka staff members came out here along with the South Australian Scorpions, the women's team here in South Australia. They laid a wreath and then individual white roses. Immediately after the service, fans were allowed onto the ground. They left their own tributes. Later on today, they'll be moved out to that memorial I spoke about earlier at the front of the Adelaide Oval. They'll stay there until the first test starts here in Adelaide next Tuesday. Angie.
OK, thanks. Mark Mooney reporting live from Adelaide Oval.
Thousands of people poured into Adelaide Oval to watch the service. Many had seen Hughes hit boundary after boundary at the ground. Today they mourned.
United in grief, hundreds descended on Philip Hughes' adopted home ground to say goodbye.
It's been a fantastic career, and I think this is a wonderful tribute to him.
I said on behalf of the family, we just feel gutted. No one should outlive their children.
From cricket pads and bats to flowers and Australian flags, this was their way of giving something back to a young man who'd given them so much joy.
To pay my respects for young Phil. His memory will live forever in all our hearts, and to all the youngsters coming up through the cricket ranks.
He was my hero, and I thought I should pay my respects to him, and it's just really sad.
We met him at the Kensington Cricket Club,
and he bought us an ice block and chatted to us about our cricket. So that was very inspirational from him.
Among those paying their respects was South Australia's Governor, Hugh Van Lay, a self-confessed cricket tragic, and tears were flowing before the service had begun as Saka staff and the SA women's team laid flowers on the centre wicket. Inside, they'd placed 63 bats in their office windows. Some knew him well, others barely at all, but it doesn't seem to matter.
Well, an extremely moving day on this absolutely beautiful, some say perfect day for cricket here, and about 2,500 people have turned up to pay their respects to Phillip Hughes, I think in an extremely beautiful way.
Throughout the service, touching messages were displayed around the ground, taken from the condolence books that have been filled since Hughes' death. He may not have been a South Aussie born and bred, but Phillip Hughes has left an enduring legacy here.
Mark Mooney joins us now. And Mark, the memorial outside Adelaide Oval is still growing.
Yeah, it certainly is, John. Late this afternoon, all of those tributes we saw being placed on the playing surface were moved out here to the Southern Plaza. They'll stay here until the end of next week's first test, so fans from across the country and from overseas can stop and pay their respects on the way in. Inside, staff are working around the clock to ensure everything will be ready to go on Tuesday, and despite the earlier than expected start, they've assured us it will be. Jane?
Seven News can reveal 2 SA health workers have been arrested for allegedly faking death threats against their own family. Mark Mooney joins us, and Mark, this follows a lengthy investigation.
That's right, Jane. 7 News broke this story back in February 2012 after a senior Aboriginal health worker claimed she'd received death threats. Tonight we can reveal that woman is former Director of Aboriginal Health Tabitha Lean. She and her partner Simon Peasley claimed they and their children were the targets of graphic racial threats, ranging from letters to their children's clothing covered in fake blood. The family was put up in hotels at taxpayers' expense. But today, after a long and complex police investigation, the pair was charged with deception offences. They've been granted bail and will face court in June. John?
7 News can reveal taxpayers have forked out more than $1 million to protect 2 SA health workers who claimed they were the targets of dozens of death threats. The couple was arrested yesterday, accused of making the threats themselves and lying to police.
These photos show Tabitha Lean and Simon Peasley on an overseas holiday with their 3 children. They were posted online in March last year, the same time the couple claimed their family was receiving graphic and racist death threats ranging from explicit letters to children's clothing soaked in fake blood. Tabitha Lean was the Director of Aboriginal Health and claimed the threats were coming from within her department. But after a long investigation involving SAPOL's anti-corruption branch, the pair was arrested yesterday morning accused of making the threats themselves. They were released on bail but weren't home today.
No. What else do you want me to say? I'm absolutely shocked. I'm absolutely gutted, really.
While police investigated the threats for more than 2 years, the family was put up in secret accommodation and had round-the-clock security at their home, costing taxpayers more than $1 million. Their doctor, psychologist and lawyer also received threats.
7 News has learned that as part of their bail conditions, Tabitha Lean and Simon Peasley have been banned from having any contact with their doctors and lawyer. That's probably because the trio will be called to give evidence in court.
That'll be in June. Mark Mooney, 7 News.
2 SA health workers accused of duping taxpayers out of hundreds of thousands of dollars have had their bail conditions changed so they can continue to be paid. As revealed by 7 News, they're accused of faking death threats against their own family, but the motive remains a mystery.
Tabitha Lean and Simon Peasley emerged from court calmly and quietly.
Did you fake death threats against your own family?
That's exactly what police say they did for more than 2.5 years. Both are employed by SA Health. Tabitha Lean is a former Director of Aboriginal Health. They claim they and their 3 children were the targets of graphic racial death threats ranging from letters to their kids' clothing being soaked in fake blood.
Did you fake death threats against your children?
While police investigated, the family was put up in accommodation, including this plush apartment complex in North Adelaide. They were also provided with round-the-clock security at their Elizabeth home, costing taxpayers more than $600,000. They'd been on leave with pay since the so-called threats began, but claimed the payments stopped when they were arrested in April.
That's because the couple's bail conditions banned them from visiting any Aboriginal or SA Health building for fear they could interfere with witnesses. They claimed that apartment's justification was if they couldn't go to work, they shouldn't be paid. Miss Lean, do you think you deserve to be paid at the moment?
The magistrate changed the conditions, allowing the couple to visit their workplace, but SA Health won't confirm if their payments will resume. Mark Mooney, 7 News.
Locals in the outback mining town of Lee Creek say they're sick of being labelled environmental vandals. With the global shift towards green energy, they fear it's only a matter of time before the coal mines shut down and their towns wiped off the map.
Melbourne Cup Day and the people of Lee Creek gather at the local pub. It's traditionally their biggest day of the year, but the mood isn't as buoyant as usual. 24 hours earlier, the UN released its latest climate report, and it didn't make for pleasant reading.
Leaders must act. Time is not on our side.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
Lee Creek is South Australia's coal mining capital, producing around 2.5 million tonnes a year. It's taken by train to the Port Augusta power station, where it's used to produce about 15% of the state's energy. During summer, the trains run at night because the days are simply too hot, and they're about to get even hotter according to the report, which predicts global warming of 4 degrees by the turn of the century. It says the way to avert it is to stop burning coal and produce 80% of the world's energy from renewable sources by 2100.
Wind farms and solar and things are huge threats to here. We've been in limbo for many years, so I suppose people just say, oh, well, here it goes again, you know.
Darren Wesley moved his family here from Adelaide 3 years ago.
Things started to struggle a bit down there, so we decided to take a punt and come up here for a while.
The move paid off and they haven't looked back.
We're gainfully employed, we like the town, we like the mine, we get looked after.
David Hunter used to work at the mine and has watched Lee Creek's decline since the late 80s.
When I first arrived here, there was over 3,000 people in town. They had a heap of redundancies, and it went from 3,000 down to about 800 or so.
Today, it's less than 500. While they're used to speculation about the town's future, they're fed up with being environmental scapegoats.
We do get it all the time. Obviously, we get the dirty brown coal and things like that.
Well, that's okay if people want to view us like that sometimes, but I bet you they still drive around in cars that use fuel and they turn their lights on at night, so it's got to come from somewhere.
Locals often refer to Lee Creek as the best end of the Flinders, and you can see why. But they know this outback oasis will only survive as long as there's coal in the ground. And with predictions, the deposit here will run out in the next few years. Some are already planning their exit.
The coal life is limited, and so we know that when that coal has run out, potentially, Lee Creek has always had a lifespan.
Desley Wardell's been running the local supermarket for 25 years and says the day the mine closes is the day she'll shut up shop.
There won't be any point in having a town, because why would people want to be here when they've got no services and there's no people?
It's not just locals who depend on the town's survival. Lee Creek services many other remote communities.
It's the last big service town in the north, but Lee Creek has got a hospital and everything, so we'll probably lose all those services.
Best end of the Flinders or not, locals just hope its end isn't on the horizon. In Lee Creek, Mark Mooney, 7 News.